Now, let's discuss about post-colonial writing and post-colonialism in political terms this time, a little bit politically. The term colony, is actually a biological term. Colony means a group of living things, a group of animals, a group of bees, a group of ants, coming from the same genealogy and living in the same place, and they travel in groups. That's a colony. Politically, a colony means when you send your army to another country and occupy a place, and afterwards if you send a governor to that place, then that means a colony. Colonies did not start with the Europeans. Colonies started very early. We can talk about Roman colonization. Roman Empire was very colonialist. They colonized all through Europe. They colonized all through Anatolia. They started from the Middle East and they colonized all through Anatolia, Balkans, Europe. As far as England, there are also Roman cities in England. The city of Bath is a Roman city. Okay, most parts of London are built by the Romans. So the bath culture, the bathroom culture is a Roman culture. So there are many places in Europe where they host Roman baths. And the city of Rome is totally built by the Romans. So Roman colonialism was probably maybe one of the earliest colonialisms. And we can also talk about Chinese colonialisms. Chinese were also great colonialists. They colonized most of Asia. And Russian colonialism, they colonized most of the Central Asia, most of the Turkic empires. Arabic colonialism is a big colonial empire. They colonized all northern Africa, and they colonized Spain, southern Europe, the Iberian Peninsula for 5 centuries. Big time, long period of time. And we can talk about, you may be against me, but I'm not talking politically here, I'm talking theoretically here. We can talk about Ottoman colonialism. How? You may say that, Hocam, Ottoman Empire was not a colonialist empire. Well, that's a political vision. I'm not talking about the Ottoman Empire in a negative way, but theoretically, if you include another country within your borders, and if you send a governor there, theoretically it is called a colony. Let's accept that. It is called a colony. And then European colonization, on the other hand, started in the 15th century. Okay, European colonization started in the 15th century. It had the purpose of spreading the religion. It had the purpose of finding new trade routes. It had the purpose of privileging their own culture and teaching the language of that culture. And so they traveled all around the world and they colonized so many places outside their borders. They call them overseas countries, overseas territories of England, of the British Empire. I said language. Yes, post-colonialism changes its form. Colonialism changes its form. Before the 20th century, it was the international law of the world. All big empires had colonies, and it was inevitable for them. They had colonies, and it was quite natural. And let me say that this natural act was justified because they thought that they had a mission to civilize those lands. It was a mission to civilize. And in this civilizing mission, which they saw as their right, in this civilizing mission, they spread their culture, spread their religion, and spread their language. Okay? And this continued until the mid-20th century. But in the early 20th century, there were protests against the colonies because most middle class, lower middle class, and poor people in England thought that they were feeding the colonies. Their money is going to the colonies, so they didn't want the colonies. So this is why there was not a humanitarian reason, but there was a financial reason to get rid of all the colonies. So one by one, until the end of the Second World War, they gave them their independence, so-called gave them their independence, and the colonies, became independent. And after the Second World War, the world was trying to, recover from the war, from the economic traces of the war, and then in the 70s and 80s, liberal economy was introduced to the world, and I can say that neo-colonialism began. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Neo-colonialism began. And in this neo-colonial world, we are still under the influence of this neo-colonialism. In neo-colonialism, there is cultural imperialism. The highest stage of capitalism is the cultural imperialism. And neo-colonialism spread its culture. It was easier, because they didn't need to send a governor there and pay him a salary, but they sent the trademarks, they sent the companies. So this is the reason we are speaking English in this course and in our classrooms. And we believe that this is the reason we believe that we have to speak good English. We have to speak it very well in order to be a world citizen. And another point is cultural imperialism's effects are long-term effects. It causes a sort of identity loss, a loss of identity. Okay? So we are living in a neo-colonial world now. Colonialism still continues. They do not send a governor, they do not send the army to other countries, but they send the culture. And it's enough to colonize a country one by one. So this is why independence is very important. Independence of the country is very important. And all the world wars, First World War and the Second World War, were caused by the desires of the Western world to share the colonies. They couldn't share the colonies, they couldn't share the natural resources of the non-European lands. And the European culture became the universal, central universal culture. It became the center of the world. It became the standard culture of everywhere in the world. Okay? So, let me ask you, do you have any questions? Any questions? So, if you don't have any questions, I'm going to share this video on YouTube and share the link on our Facebook page, and you'll be able to watch and listen to it again and again. And next week, I'm going to do a general review of everything that we have studied this term. And I will give you your your homeworks for final exam. Okay, see you later. Good evening. Thank you for joining me.